We, the jury, find by a vote of 9-3 that Wade Wilson should be sentenced to death.
The courtroom was colder than usual that morning. Not because of the air conditioning, but because of the silence, the kind that settles when people are too stunned to speak. A silence that doesn't feel like peace. It feels like fear holding its breath. A man sat still in the defendant's chair, hands resting calmly in his lap, face blank. Beneath his right eye, ink stained his skin in the shape of a swastika. Above his brow, the word glory, curled in thick black letters. His eyes didn't move much. They didn't need to. Everyone in the room could feel them. Across the aisle, another man sat. Older, tired, his back straight but barely. He didn't blink as the judge began to speak. His lips pressed tight, his fingers laced together like he was holding something in. It wasn't grief. It was something sharper. The two men shared the same eyes. One had raised the other. The gavel dropped. A sentence was spoken. Not just years or life, but death. Still, the man in the defendant's chair did not flinch. No begging, no tears, no emotion at all. Only his lips moved, just a little, barely enough for anyone to notice. Only one person heard what he whispered, and for a moment even the judge paused, because whatever Wade Wilson said froze the entire room. No one would forget the sentence, but fewer would forget the secret he left behind. The secret that made his own father promise to be there when the execution came, not to say goodbye, but to watch. Before he was Wade Wilson, he was Anthony. He came into the world quietly, born to two teenagers who were too young and too scared to raise him. They made a hard choice, maybe the right one. They gave him away, hoping someone else could give him what they couldn't. Safety, love, a future. Steve and Candace Wilson were waiting. A kind couple, church-going, gentle. They already had 2 daughters and were praying for a son. When they held Anthony for the first time, they believed their prayers had been answered. They gave him a new name, Wade. He was the kind of boy who made people smile. Big eyes, curious hands, always asking questions. He loved dogs, fast bikes, and Sunday morning pancakes. He was smart too. Not genius level, but sharp. He brought home good grades. He was athletic. He laughed often. His room had trophies lined up on a shelf. Little gold figurines of boys kicking soccer balls, holding footballs, crossing finish lines. His walls were covered in posters of race cars and superheroes. On his nightstand, a Bible with his name engraved in gold. On Sundays, the Wilson family filled the same church pew. Steve in a suit, Candace in a soft blue dress. Wade between them, singing softly, eyes on the ceiling lights like they were stars. Neighbors called him polite. Teachers called him promising. His parents called him a blessing. For the first 11 years of his life, Wade was everything a family could hope for. His adoptive sisters adored him. His classmates invited him to every party. He had a glow about him, the kind kids rarely keep. But childhood has a way of hiding shadows. And even the brightest boys can begin to flicker. Around his 13th birthday, something began to change. The trophies stopped coming. The bedroom door stayed shut. And the blinds, once left open to sunshine, were pulled down tightly every day. He started checking the windows at night. Said people were watching the house. Said there were things in the garage. His parents laughed at first, gently. Thought it was imagination. But Wade wasn't smiling anymore. The boy who once prayed at bedtime had started whispering to himself in the dark. Love was still in the house. But love was no longer enough. Wade was 11 when he said the words, "I think I'm losing my mind." His mother paused. She thought it was something he'd seen on TV. A joke. A moment. Something boys say when they're tired, angry, or confused. But Wade wasn't joking. His voice was low, flat. His eyes were wide, but not in fear. More like a person watching something no one else could see. That night, he shut all the blinds. Again. Every single one. By 12, he wouldn't go into the garage. He said something was in there. When his father opened the door and flipped the light on, it was just boxes, tools, and the water heater humming softly. Wade stared into the dark corner behind the lawnmower and didn't blink. His grades dropped. His sleep vanished. The boy who once ran across the backyard in cleats now walked through the halls of his house like something was chasing him. And sometimes, he'd stop mid-sentence and look over his shoulder like he heard a whisper. There was nothing there. He started getting hurt a lot. Sports injuries, fights, bike crashes, 2-car accidents before he was even old enough to drive. 4 concussions before he turned 18. 3 times he lost consciousness. Once so badly that his mother cried while holding ice to his head on the kitchen floor. Doctors stitched him up. Coaches told him to rest. But inside his head, something had already broken. Years later, a neurologist would scan Wade's brain and see the damage glowing in dark gray smudges. The frontal lobe where impulse lives. The amygdala where fear is managed. Both injured. Both scarred. Perfect storm. This is the part most people don't understand. Brain damage doesn't make someone evil. It doesn't create murderers. But in Wade's case, it took away the part of him that could stop. He got angry quickly. He couldn't calm down. He acted without thinking. He chased thrills. He broke things. And once he started hurting people, he didn't know how to stop. It wasn't just his mind slipping anymore. It was his humanity. By 16, Wade wasn't a boy anymore. He was stealing cars, breaking into homes, lying, smiling while doing it. He wasn't hiding his behavior, he didn't think he had to. And by 25, he wasn't robbing anymore. He was hunting. Criminals don't wake up one morning and decide to become killers. It builds. One crime stacked on another. One warning sign ignored. One he's just troubled brushed aside. Until one day someone dies. Wade Wilson's descent wasn't sudden. It was a staircase, and everyone saw him walking down it. He was only 16 the first time he was arrested for stealing a car. A joyride, they called it. A teenager being stupid. The charges didn't stick. A year later, it was burglary. This time, he'd broken into a home while the family was away. He took electronics, jewelry, and a shotgun from under the bed. When asked why he took the gun, he said it looked cool. By 18, he'd added assault to the list. A street fight, they said. He claimed self-defense. No one was seriously hurt. He walked free. Then came the weapons charges. He'd been caught with 2 stolen handguns in the trunk of a friend's car. He said they weren't his. The case dragged. Fizzled. No conviction. It was always like that. Crime after crime. Lie after lie. Charge after charge. But no consequences that stuck. People began to call him reckless. Dangerous. A lost cause. Still, no one believed he was truly violent. Not yet. Then came 2015. He was arrested for kidnapping and sexual assault. A girl had been held against her will in a locked trailer. She said Wade was one of the men who took her. But she was scared to testify. She moved states. The case fell apart. Another red flag. Another door left open. And then, in 2018, something crossed the line. Wade Wilson was offered $20,000 to kill a man. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't hearsay. He said yes. He took the money. And he planned it. He was on probation at the time. He was already under supervision. Still, he walked free. 8 months later, 2 women would be dead. Looking back, the signs are so clear it hurts to see them. He was on what experts now call the violence ladder. Property crimes, then weapons, then sex crimes, then murder for hire. Every step higher means the next fall is deadlier. And the worst part? He was never falling. He was climbing. It was a Monday night in Fort Myers, Florida. The kind of night that didn't feel like a warning. Inside Buddha Live, the bar was alive with sound. Music buzzed through the speakers. Glasses clinked. Laughter rolled across the room like waves. People danced, drank, leaned into each other, carefree. Christine Melton was there, smiling, hair loose over her shoulders. 35 years old, confident, bright. She'd come with her friend and coworker, Stephanie Sailors. They were regulars, the kind of women the bartenders knew by name. They weren't looking for trouble. They weren't looking for danger. Just a drink, a dance, and a night of fun. Then Wade Wilson walked in. No dramatic music. No thunderclap. No chill in the air. Just a man. He didn't scream danger. He didn't look wild. His face was clean. His voice was smooth. He bought drinks, made jokes, complimented shoes. He danced. He smiled. He listened when people spoke. He even made Christine laugh. He wasn't foaming at the mouth. He was charming. He flirted. He fit in. Predators don't come with warning labels. They come with confidence. They come with charm. They come when you least expect them, and when your guard is down. When the bar closed, Christine, Stephanie, and Wade left together. They ended up at another spot, a quieter place. There was music, more drinks, more small talk, nothing strange, no red flags. Later, Stephanie said everything felt normal. Christine seemed happy. She even said so. That night, she sent her last message to a friend. It had a smiley face. The world was still whole. And then, it wasn't, because by sunrise, Christine Melton was dead. She had gone to sleep in her own bed. But the man she had smiled at in the bar, laughed with, danced with, kissed, had waited until she closed her eyes. Then he killed her. The last text Christine Melton ever sent had a smiley face at the end. Her phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. The room was quiet now. The music was gone. The laughter gone. Even the air seemed still, as if it too was holding its breath. She lay in her bed, eyes heavy from the night. The soft glow of a lamp lit half the room in a warm, golden hue. Beside her, Wade Wilson sat on the edge of the mattress, silent. He wasn't smiling anymore. Christine had fallen asleep with a full heart. She felt safe. She felt seen. Maybe even a little lucky. She didn't know the man beside her wasn't watching her sleep because he cared. He was studying her, waiting, and when the moment came, he moved. No sound, no warning, just two hands, wrapped around her throat. First, her body didn't believe it. Her brain didn't catch up. Then it did. She woke up choking, fighting. Her nails tore at his skin. Her legs kicked the sheets off the bed. Her face hit the headboard. Her arms flailed. But he didn't stop. He squeezed. He watched her panic. He waited for the fight to leave her body. And when it did, he let go. Christine Melton, who had walked into a bar alive, dancing, glowing, was now still, lifeless, a purple bruise forming across her neck. Her fingernails were broken. Her lips were split. Her face was swollen and bruised. And Wade? He stood up, calm. He walked into the bathroom and looked at himself in the mirror. Blood on his skin, scratches across his chest. He didn't flinch. He took her car keys from the counter, opened her front door, walked into the quiet morning like nothing had happened. He had strangled a woman while she slept beside him. And when it was done, he stole her car. This is what predators look like. Not monsters in the shadows, but men who dance with you, laugh with you, kiss you goodnight. It only takes seconds to flip the switch. She trusted him. She smiled at him. She never saw it coming. The blood on Wade Wilson's body hadn't even dried. Hours earlier, he had strangled Christine Melton in her own bed, watched the life drain from her face, then calmly taken her car keys and driven off in her white Nissan Sentra. He didn't speed. He didn't panic. There was no plan to run, because he wasn't finished. He was still hunting. Diane Ruiz was on her way to work. It was just another morning in Cape Coral, Florida. The sky was soft with early sunlight, the air warm and quiet. Diane was 43 years old, a mother of two, and walking the familiar route to the bar where she worked. Her son had messaged her earlier that morning, just a sweet note about his upcoming band performance. The one she'd promised she wouldn't miss. She was supposed to meet him after school. She was smiling when the car pulled up beside her. The white Nissan rolled to a slow stop. The driver leaned over and spoke through the passenger window. He asked for directions. His voice was calm, smooth, even polite. Diane didn't hesitate. She stepped forward to help. She never had a reason to be afraid of strangers. In a blink, his hand reached out, and he yanked her into the car. She screamed. She fought. She kicked at the dashboard and punched wildly, trying to open the door. But the locks had already clicked down, and the car was moving. Fast. He didn't speak. He didn't yell. He just drove. Eyes locked on the road, hands steady on the wheel. Diane's heart pounded. The streets blurred past her. Unfamiliar buildings turning into warehouses. Then fields. Then nothing at all. He stopped behind a Sam's Club, in a remote patch of land far from anyone who could hear. The car door opened. He dragged her out, and the struggle began all over again. But Diane Ruiz wasn't done fighting. She clawed at his face, kicked his knees, shoved him back. She twisted away and ran. Blood on her elbows, dirt in her mouth, barefoot, stumbling through weeds and gravel. But she was moving, fast, desperate, and determined. She almost made it. She could see the edge of the field. The road was ahead. Cars passed in the distance. She didn't scream this time. She saved her breath for her legs. She knew if she slowed down, even for a second, he would catch her. But he didn't chase her on foot. He got back in the car. The roar of the engine came like thunder behind her. Tires tearing through the dirt. She looked back. It was too late. The car hit her from behind with such force her body was thrown forward, then crumpled to the ground. Somehow she was still alive. She tried to crawl. She moved her hand. She turned her head. He reversed the car, lined up his target, and hit her again, and again, and again, until the field went silent. Diane Ruiz, a woman who had simply tried to help someone asking for directions, was gone. Her body was left in the grass. Wade Wilson drove away in the same car he had stolen after murdering Christine Melton. No guilt, no fear, no second thought. He didn't even look back. At home, Diane's son had just finished getting dressed. He was practicing for his first high school marching band performance, the one his mother was excited about, the one she had promised to attend. He kept checking his phone, waiting for a call, waiting for her to walk through the door. She never did. By the time Wade Wilson had murdered 2 women in one morning, he had left behind more than blood. He left tire tracks, DNA, fingerprints, and pain. But he also left something else. Something no killer ever expects to haunt them. A witness who would turn him in, not by accident but by choice. That witness was his biological father. Wade made the call himself. Not to a lawyer. Not to a friend. Not to someone who could help him disappear. He called his father, Stephen Tessica. The same man who had once held him as a baby now answered the phone, unaware that the voice on the other end would leave a scar on his soul forever. The call was short, emotionless. There was no panic in Wade's tone. He didn't cry. He didn't even sound tired. He simply told his father the truth. I killed 2 people. No explanation. No hesitation. When his father asked why, Wade gave an answer that would horrify the entire country. I just wanted to do it. That was it. No rage. No regret. Just a cold sentence that sounded more like a child describing a choice to try a new game, not end 2 lives. His father froze. For a moment he said nothing. Then he hung up and called the police. There was no doubt in his voice, no question about what needed to happen. His son had become a killer and now he had to stop him. The arrest happened quickly. Police traced Wade to a location in Cape Coral and found him still in the stolen car, with traces of blood, bruises, and damage that told the story before he even opened his mouth. He didn't resist. He didn't deny it. He said almost nothing at all. But the confession was already on record, sitting in the memory of the one man who could never unhear it. This moment wasn't just the end of Wade Wilson's freedom. It wasn't even just the start of a court case. It was the moment the world met the face of a killer who felt nothing. It was the moment families shattered, reporters scrambled, and headlines screamed. But for Wade, it was just another action, another step, another chapter in something far darker than anyone had yet realized. Because this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning.
Okay. All right. Mr. Wilson nodded his head no. Judge, this is a letter from the adoptive parents of Mr. Wilson. It's been 5 years since the worst of this began. You can't possibly understand how sorry we are for the families affected by this tragedy. We cannot change the past, but we wish we could. On that fateful day 5 years ago, not only were the lives and the dreams of 2 women lost, with their families left behind in shock and grief, but another family was left shocked and grieved over a different kind of loss. It's easy to recognize the victims and their families and to feel profound sympathy for all they suffered and lost.
When Wade Wilson entered the courtroom for the first day of his trial, people didn't look at him. They stared, not because they hadn't seen his face before, but because now it looked nothing like the young man who had once played sports, sat in a pew beside his adoptive family, or smiled in school photos. That version of Wade was long gone. In his place stood something colder, stranger, and far more dangerous. His face was covered in tattoos, each one more disturbing than the last. The word glory was inked across his forehead in bold, sharp letters. Under one eye, the The word haha laughed silently at the room. But it was the swastika, tattooed just beneath his right eye, that sent shivers through everyone present. The judge had allowed it to be covered with makeup during trial, but the damage was already done. Reporters had seen it. The public had seen it. And so had the families of the victims. No amount of makeup could hide what he had become. He wasn't just a man with a violent past. He was now the walking embodiment of hate, chaos, and destruction. Even in a courtroom surrounded by police officers, lawyers, and cameras, Wade Wilson looked like he had already chosen his side, and it wasn't with the living. Throughout the proceedings, he showed little emotion. No tears, no visible shame. Sometimes he leaned back in his chair, smirking. Other times, he simply stared forward like none of it mattered. He didn't flinch at crime scene photos. He didn't react when his father took the stand. He didn't even turn his head when the mothers of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz cried so hard they could barely speak. He just sat there, wearing his inked-up face like a mask, unmoved and unreadable. The prosecution painted him as a cold-blooded killer, which wasn't hard to prove. They had evidence, DNA, the confession call, witnesses, and behind all of it was the unmistakable truth. Wade didn't kill out of passion, revenge, or fear. He killed because he wanted to. He said so himself. The jury sat frozen as photos flashed across the screen. Christine's bruised body, Diane's lifeless form in the field, the damage to their necks, their faces, their dignity. But it wasn't the images alone that made jurors turn pale. It was the man watching them with quiet satisfaction. He sat in court with glory tattooed on his face and a smirk that made the jury's skin crawl. By the end of the day, no one wondered if he was guilty. The only question left was whether the death penalty would be enough. The courtroom changed the moment the verdict was read. The silence didn't feel like justice, it felt like grief finally getting permission to speak. The families of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz had waited nearly 5 years for that moment. 5 years of nightmares, court delays, media stories, and memories they never asked to relive. And now, with the jury gone and the guilt confirmed, it was their turn to speak. They didn't come to forgive. They came to remember. Christine's cousin, Samantha, stood at the podium with trembling hands and swollen eyes. She spoke of birthdays with empty chairs, of a mother who still believed her daughter was alive because the truth was too cruel to accept. Her voice cracked when she described how Christine had always believed in second chances, how she would have probably smiled at Wilson that night because that's just who she was, a person who wanted to see the good in others, even if it killed her. Diane Ruiz's brother spoke next. His hands were clenched so tightly his knuckles went white. He described Diane as a fighter, a mother, a woman who worked long hours and still came home to help with homework. He said her son waited by the front window the day she was murdered, holding his trumpet, dressed in his marching band uniform. He said the boy still keeps that uniform folded on his bed, unworn since the day she didn't show up. But it was Diane's father, Felix Ruiz, who delivered the words that stopped the courtroom cold. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just looked directly at Wade Wilson with the kind of stare that only a father who's buried his child can carry. Then he said the one sentence that everyone would remember. I will be there when he takes his last breath. That's a promise. He didn't ask for mercy. He didn't ask for answers. He just wanted to see the end. The courtroom felt heavier after that. Even the judge took a moment to breathe before continuing. The pain in that room was too loud to ignore. It bled through every wall, soaked into every wooden bench, and settled into the bones of everyone who heard it. But outside that courtroom, something darker was already growing. Because while the world believed Wade Wilson was now contained, facing death, stripped of power, what if that wasn't the end? What if I told you he became even more dangerous behind bars? Most people think prison is the end. That once a killer is locked away, the danger disappears. That concrete walls, barbed wire, and numbered jumpsuits take the monster out of the man. But Wade Wilson didn't just survive prison. He evolved inside it. He didn't become smaller, weaker, or more isolated. He became bolder, louder, and more dangerous. The man who walked into Lee County Jail in 2019 wasn't the same man who showed up in court 5 years later. And that change didn't happen by accident. When Wilson was first arrested, he looked like a man with a violent past. Some tattoos, a few scars. But by the time he stood trial, he had transformed himself into something entirely different. His face had become a canvas of hatred. The word glory had been inked across his eyebrow, carved in sharp black lettering. Beneath one eye, the words "haha" sat crookedly, like a cruel joke told at the expense of everyone he had hurt. But it was the swastika under his right eye that defined him, a mark so disturbing the judge ordered it covered with makeup during proceedings. Makeup couldn't erase what was underneath. Wilson's tattoos weren't random. They were not the scribbles of a man losing his mind. They were signals, symbols of allegiance, hate, and gang affiliation. He had joined Unforgiven, a white supremacist prison gang known for its brutal tactics, strict loyalty codes, and radical ideology. Inmates don't just join gangs like Unforgiven by asking. They earn their way in. They prove themselves. And Wade Wilson proved himself quickly. Inside, he wasn't quiet. He wasn't hiding. He was networking. He was recruiting. He was building connections with other violent offenders, exchanging letters with supremacist leaders, and creating a reputation that fed his ego. He turned his cell into a planning room. His tattoos weren't just expressions, they were advertisements. He wanted to be seen, feared, followed. Then came the escape plan. It wasn't a sloppy idea whispered in the dark. It was detailed, timed, and terrifying. Alongside his cellmate, Joseph Katz, Wilson crafted a plan that read like something out of a prison heist film. They removed a window, one that had been reinforced with thick security glass. They didn't break it all at once. They cracked it slowly over days, maybe weeks, using tools they had pieced together or stolen from inside the prison. They took apart the metal window frame piece by piece, hiding the damage from guards during inspections. Somehow, they even removed a heavy metal stool that had been bolted to the concrete floor of their cell. No one noticed it missing until it was too late. The plan was to escape between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m., when guards were thinnest and the prison's rhythm slowed. An outside car was scheduled to be waiting nearby. They had handwritten notes detailing routes, timing, and communication signals. This wasn't a cry for help. It was a tactical mission. Wilson was planning to disappear, to vanish before justice could finish what it started. But the plan didn't go through. Another inmate, either afraid or trying to earn favor, tipped off the guards. Wilson and Katz were caught before they could make their move. But the damage had already been done. The prison realized just how organized Wilson had become, and how far he was willing to go to stay in control. He was charged with attempted escape and criminal mischief. More time was added to his already terminal sentence. But even after the failed escape, Wilson didn't stop operating. His influence only grew. Because when force didn't work, he turned to something harder to trace: drugs. In 2023, while still awaiting trial, Wade Wilson overdosed on methamphetamine inside his cell. Prison staff rushed to save him. He survived. But that overdose set off an internal investigation that uncovered a smuggling operation run straight from Wilson's jail cell. He had organized a small network of inmates and outside contacts. Drugs were being dropped near prison fences and smuggled in by trusty inmates, prisoners who had earned small privileges. He communicated through coded mail, verbal messages, and even scribbled notes passed hand to hand like old-school spy rings. Wilson wasn't just using, he was trafficking. He pled no contest and received an additional 12-year sentence, plus $50,000 in fines. Not that it mattered. He was already facing death. But the fines were symbolic. A reminder that even in a place built to break men down, Wade Wilson was still building something: power, reputation, and influence among the worst of the worst. The system tried to contain him, but cages only held his body. His mind was still running. His hands were still reaching. His name was still spreading. And all the while, he sat in court during trial, his escape attempt still fresh, his overdose barely behind him, and his face tattooed in symbols of death and hate, smiling like a man who knew he'd already gotten farther than anyone ever expected. Wade Wilson was no longer an inmate. He was an idea, one that fed on fear, hate, and control. Locked behind concrete walls and steel doors, most men shrink. They're isolated, forgotten, stripped down. But not Wade. Prison didn't break him. It sharpened him. Inside his 6-by-9-foot cell, he wasn't just surviving. He was working, building, spreading. After the failed escape attempt, the system tightened its grip. More lockdowns, more surveillance, less access. But Wade adapted. Like a virus behind the walls, he found new ways to spread his reach. When guards looked away, he made contact. When inmates passed meals, he passed notes. And when one of his coded messages was finally intercepted, it exposed something deeper. A full-fledged drug trafficking operation coordinated from inside death row. The operation was quiet, but steady. Drops were arranged outside the prison perimeter, smuggled in by trustees, inmates who had earned limited freedom within the facility. Methamphetamine was the main product. Wade wasn't just a user. He was the organizer, the strategist, the mind behind the entire system. His contacts moved through letters written in pencil, in invisible ink, hidden between Bible pages or beneath commissary order forms. Some messages were burned after reading. Others never left the walls at all, passed from inmate to inmate like poisonous whispers. Then came the overdose. In 2023, Wade collapsed inside his cell, convulsing from a meth-induced spiral. Guards found him unresponsive, barely breathing. Emergency medical teams pulled him back from the edge. But that near-death experience didn't slow him down. It exposed him. That overdose became the crack in the wall that revealed everything: the smuggling network, the stash routes, the coded instructions, the recruitment pipeline. And behind all of it, at the top of the chain, sat Wade Wilson. Prison psychologists were brought in to assess the threat. What they found wasn't madness. It was structure, control, purpose. Wade wasn't just another violent inmate spiraling in chaos. He was methodical, disciplined, charismatic enough to recruit and radicalize, manipulative enough to get others to do the work while he stayed clean on the surface. Inside prison walls, hate-based gangs like Unforgiven thrive on two things: identity and loyalty. Wade gave them both, and in return, he got something far more valuable than protection. He got power. One expert later said, he wasn't being rehabilitated. He was building an army. It wasn't an exaggeration. In a place designed to cage monsters, Wade Wilson was becoming a symbol, a leader, a message. And while the outside world waited for justice to be carried out, inside those walls, Wade had already carved out his own kingdom. Wade Wilson's final day will begin like any other on death row. Inside a 6 by 9 foot cell, surrounded by silence, watched around the clock by guards trained not to look him in the eye unless necessary. But once the Florida Department of Corrections confirms the execution date, the process begins with machine-like precision. 24 hours before the scheduled time, Wilson will be removed from his regular cell and placed into a death watch cell, a slightly larger holding area just steps away from the execution chamber itself. The walls are white. The bed is metal. There are no personal items, no distractions, and no shadows to hide in. It's not a place built for comfort. It's built for waiting. From that moment on, Wilson will be monitored constantly. 2 correctional officers will stand watch in rotating shifts, documenting his every movement. No phone calls except to legal counsel. No more letters. No more coded notes. No more control. Only time ticking down in silence. He will be given the option to meet with a spiritual advisor or close family member. Whether anyone will choose to visit him remains unclear. His biological father, the same man who turned him in, has made it clear he plans to be there. Not behind the glass as a comfort, but in the witness room, to watch the very last moment of the son who called him, calmly, to confess to 2 murders. Florida's execution protocol is exact. It has to be. The final meal is limited by law, a $40 budget sourced locally, prepared inside the prison kitchen. There are no feasts, no theatrics. If Wilson chooses anything, it will likely be something simple: a burger, fries, ice cream, or maybe nothing at all. Most inmates lose their appetite by the time the final hour arrives. The weight of inevitability sits heavier than hunger. At precisely 6 p.m., he will be escorted by 2 guards to the execution chamber. The room is cold, sterile, and silent, not like in the movies. No dark shadows, no dramatic lighting, just bright, buzzing fluorescence and the smell of antiseptic. A single gurney sits at the center, surrounded by medical equipment, restraints, and the glass window through which selected witnesses will watch. Wilson will lie flat as officers strap down his wrists, ankles, chest, and legs. A medical technician will insert 2 4-lines, 1 primary, 1 backup. Both will run to the small box in the corner of the room that holds 3 syringes. Florida uses a 3-drug protocol. The first, etomidate, will render him unconscious within seconds. The second, rocuronium bromide, will paralyze his muscles. And the third, potassium acetate, will stop his heart. The full process takes less than 10 minutes. But it feels much longer for those who watch it. Before the drugs are administered, Wade will be asked if he has any final words. They will be recorded, documented, and, if cleared, released to the public. Some inmates use that moment to apologize. Some quote scripture. Others stay silent. But Wade Wilson is not most inmates. His first confession to his father contained just 5 words. "I just wanted to do it." The world now waits to hear if those will also be his last. It's not Hollywood. It's clinical, cold, and final, just like him. But the question still lingers. Will he apologize? Or will he leave the world with the same words that started it all? "I just wanted to do it." In the days after the sentencing, the courtroom emptied, the headlines faded, and the cameras turned to newer stories. But the families of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz didn't move on. They couldn't. Grief doesn't follow the news cycle. It lingers in silence, shows up in empty chairs at birthday dinners, in quiet car rides, in the spaces where laughter used to live. It hides in unopened text threads, missed calls, and memories that don't know how to fade. And for these families, the pain wasn't just about what was lost. It was about what was ignored. The signs had always been there. Wade Wilson didn't snap. He didn't explode out of nowhere. His violence didn't come from a void. It came from a long, slow burn that nobody truly saw until it was too late. The brain trauma, 4 concussions before adulthood. The paranoia, the isolation, the complete shift in behavior at 13. The escalating crimes, theft, assault, weapons, kidnapping, murder for hire. And finally, the radicalization, the tattoos, the ideology, the smuggling, the gang leadership behind bars. Every single one of these was a red flag. Alone, they were warning signs. Together, they were a blueprint for disaster. But no one connected the dots. His parents tried, but didn't understand what they were seeing. His victims didn't have a chance to. And the justice system, the one meant to stop men like him, gave him chance after chance until there were no more left to give. True crime isn't just about killers. It's about what we miss when we look away. It's about the people who are still alive today because they saw something, trusted their instincts, and walked away before it was too late. Wade Wilson didn't come from a horror movie. He came from a quiet house with family dinners. He went to school. He made friends. He learned to smile when people were watching. But behind that smile, something broken was growing. Something violent. Something hungry. And when it finally came out, it took 2 lives and shattered dozens more. This isn't just a story. It's a warning. It's a mirror held up to a system that waited too long to act. To parents who didn't know what to look for. To communities that confuse charisma with safety. To all of us who think evil always looks obvious. Christine Melton should still be alive. Diane Ruiz should still be alive. And now, you know how to recognize someone like Wade Wilson before it's too late. Because true crime isn't entertainment. It's education. It's protection. It's your chance to see what others missed. So if you ever feel like something's wrong, if someone makes your stomach twist, even when they smile, trust it. Trust yourself. Because evil rarely looks like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a man offering a ride. Comment below. Did you see the signs? Did you catch the red flags before the second victim did? Let me know. Because the next life this story saves could be someone you love. And if you're here for more than just the story, if you're here to learn, to protect, to never be caught off guard again, then hit that subscribe button. This isn't just content. This is your warning system. Because monsters don't hide under your bed. They sit across from you at the bar. They ask for directions. They smile first.